Hello, booktube. Welcome back to Please Read Your Book. My name is Carl, and in this video I'm going to talk about a crime graphic novel titled The Last Days of American Crime, which is written by Rick Remender, who's quite big in the comics world now. But when this came out, this actually first came out in 2009. And when it first came out, I think it was one of his first big titles. It was definitely the title that introduced me to Rick Remender. I first read this about 2010, so quite a while ago, but I've recently reread it and really enjoyed it, and that's why I wanted to make this video and share it with you. So before I go any further, I should say that this is a graphic novel that is definitely not for the faint of heart, and Rick Remender has done quite a bit of work with Marvel and some of the bigger comic publishers, so he's well known in that regard, but this graphic novel is very different, and it was on an indie publisher as well, so the content in it is pretty edgy, pretty gritty. It was back then and it still is now, and what I'm talking about specifically is there's a lot of explicit drug use, explicit sex, and explicit violence, murder, mayhem, that kind of thing. So even though I had read this before, when I read it again recently, I was pretty taken aback by how explicit a lot of that stuff was, particularly the drug use. So if that's something that you're sensitive to or touches a nerve or triggers you, it's definitely something to be aware of. Like I said, I'm sensitive to some of that material, and I found it a little bit like, whoa, some of it is pretty realistic, I guess is what I want to say, and it could kind of trigger some memories or some feelings that maybe you don't want to have. So having said that, there is a couple of great pages and panels, though, where one of the main characters reflects back on how he kind of comes close to falling off the wagon, so to speak. And I thought that was pretty poignant, and I think I'll share that. Actually, I'll share that panel right here. So it's 192 pages in a trade paperback. I read it digitally. As I've talked about in other videos, I pretty much do all my reading digitally now. But 192 pages, but it's a very quick read. I got through it just in 2 or 3 sittings on a Saturday afternoon, just kind of on a lazy day in between doing other things. So you can get through it quickly. It's a very fast read. So let's talk a little bit about the plot. So this story is set in a near future America. And as you can kind of guess, future America is not so great. You can guess by the title, right? So it's just like this landscape of just constant mayhem and crime and major crime and just all sorts of just horrible stuff going on. So the government, or at least whatever's passing for the American government at the time, has decided that it's going to exploit a technology which broadcasts a signal to psychologically block and prevent an individual from unknowingly committing a crime. And they've announced that they're going to do this. And of course, very American, as soon as you announce that you're taking something away, people just go crazy for it, right? And it's human nature, but it's also definitely a very kind of American culture. So with that sort of happening in the background, we meet our protagonist, Mr. Graham Brick. And he is a career criminal, of course. Wouldn't be a great crime graphic novel without our seasoned pros, if you will. Of course, he's got a checkered past, which is a little bit sketchy. We kind of don't know much about it. And he's very good at stealing. He's very good at killing. So, great character. We've also got this guy called Kevin Cash, who is this younger character. He's kind of a tech genius, and together with kind of his girlfriend, it's never really clear, and she's definitely kind of a free agent of her own when it comes to relationships, Shelby Dupree. And together they've got this plan to sort of, not sort of, well, they're going to steal and then hack and hijack what is basically a futuristic ATM system that is going to help them, not going to help them, but it's going to just dump all this cash onto them. And then they're going to use that cash basically just to finance the rest of their lives. So they don't have to worry about not being able to commit crimes anymore, because this is how they make their living. They're criminals. So they're kind of going to do like the last big heist. And this could possibly be the last big heist of American history, which it's kind of something noteworthy, I think. So we can talk a little bit about the characters. Graham Brick, like I said before, he's kind of this hardened criminal. He's really got a talent for heists. He's very charismatic, but like all great criminal protagonists, he's also morally ambiguous. And I think that's something that's pretty interesting in this graphic novel. I'll kind of come back to that a little bit later, but that's something that I always really like, is when your protagonists are kind of somewhere in the gray zone. It's not always so black and white. So the other two characters, Kevin Cash and Shelby Dupree, we don't really learn a lot about them. We learn more about Graham, but we do learn that Kevin Cash is the son of some kind of mafia figure. He's done something with his father's stepmother, and then his father killed the stepmother. It's all very a bit strange and weird, but it doesn't really get explored too much. But what we do learn is that there was a double cross on a job that he was involved with, and he's broken off on his own now. But he has tried to reconnect with them because he wants to borrow some heavy equipment to pull off this job. And then we've got Shelby Dupree, and she is kind of like the hacker of the team, which is a role that we see a lot in, contemporary and sort of near future crime thrillers. You've always got to have the techie that can do the hacking for you, and that's her. She's probably the most unreliable of the trio, and she's the one that's the hardest to kind of figure out, and she's definitely sort of the chaotic agent in the story, if you will. Now, I want to emphasize again that this is definitely an adult graphic novel. This is not for young people. This is not for teenagers. There's a lot of explicit drug use, explicit sex, explicit violence, murder, mayhem, all that kind of stuff. And all that it's going on in the background, and it's also very present in the main narrative and in the plot. And it's a huge part of who the characters are and how they're interacting with each other and what they're doing to put the pieces of the puzzle together to pull off their heist. And I bring that up again because Remender really does a great job of portraying and creating this sort of America that is tearing itself apart with crime, whether it's just petty crime or absolutely these sort of big major heists. And along with that, the artwork from Greg Tocchini is just really great. It's similar to the artwork you might find like in books like The Killer or The Assignment, in that it at times can be impressionistic, but at the same time it's still very gritty, it's still very realistic, and it really enhances and helps propel the storytelling and the narrative and pushing it forward, and also kind of pushing the envelope with it too. At the same time though, it's not overbearing and it doesn't overpower and overtake, which is something that I really like and find really enjoyable. So if we kind of look at it a little bit deeper, which I think is where it starts to get interesting, we have all these themes of morality, of ambiguous morality, of the sort of looming hand of government control, of who controls our thoughts, what should we do when people are out of control. Why are people out of control? Is it because people want to be free? Is it just because of selfish desire? Is it because of an underlying desire to take out vengeance on each other? And the thing that kind of keeps coming back to it is, how should people control themselves? And who should make that decision of how to be controlled? We can also look at it the other side. How should people be free? How much freedom should a person have? And how should they be able to exercise that freedom? So it's easy to look and say, like, well, people are going crazy. They're killing each other. They're doing all sorts of horrible drugs. There's murder and all this kind of stuff going on. And it's easy to, yeah, you can look at those things. Yes, we need to stem that, and we need to try to prevent that. And when those things do happen, we do need to punish those. Those are very clearly crimes. But there's something else going on too, where you have the sort of like outlaw, the person who wants to live outside of society. And maybe they engage in the sort of crime that doesn't really hurt anyone. Technically it's illegal, but no one's hurt. The victimless crime. When the government comes down hard, and what happens in the graphic novel is obviously an exaggeration, but when the government comes down hard on crime, even those people who aren't really hurting anyone, they just want to live independently, and they want to live outside the law, which is what an outlaw is, they have to make a choice. Do they push themselves even further out and maybe do something extreme, or do they submit? And that's kind of, to me, that's interesting about what's going on here. And of course, we can also think about, like, what are the consequences of authoritarian government, and how do people react to that? And I think that Remender's storytelling is very realistic about how Americans react to government control. And Americans tend to react very violently. Americans will push back, for better and for worse. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's something that is pretty unique to the fabric of America. And we kind of forget that America really is an outlaw nation, and that America, in the DNA of the nation of America, we have those people. It's part of the fabric of who we are, that people want to live outside the law, for better and for worse. And we have to think about that. Like, what does that mean? If we were to finally eradicate all of that, who would we be as a country? Who would America be? Okay, so I think I got a little bit deeper there than I needed to. This is a great crime graphic novel. I would strongly recommend this if you like books like The Killer, if you like crime stories that are told from the point of view of the criminals. So also if you like a lot of the work from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, things like Criminal, things like Reckless, I think you would really enjoy this. Having said that, it's a bit more extreme than those books, partially because it's got this near future sci-fi kind of backdrop, the kind of thing that Rick Remender is quite good at. However, like I've said before, the heart of the story really is just about what is wrong, what is right, what are criminals, what is outlaw, where is morality, how does morality fit into all of this kind of stuff. So I think this is a great graphic novel, highly recommended, and check it out. If you've read this already, because it has been out for quite a while, if you've read this already, please leave some thoughts in the comments. I'd be very curious to hear what people think of this. So there you go. Once again, this has been Please Read Your Book. My name's Carl, and I hope to see you again soon.